Well, good morning, and I'm here with Bruce Howlett, who has a very ambitious idea, an idea that he thinks could potentially end the reading wars. So we're going to talk to Bruce about that in a moment. Um, we'll be talking about his background, his book, the model, his visions for change. And before we get into that, though, we're just going to let Bruce talk for a moment. Bruce, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thank you, Sam. I I had a long, hard road learning how to read fluently. It started when I in second grade, and they gave me a bunch of books that were like maybe decodable, I don't know. And could read those books, but I never progressed at that point. In third grade, they hired a new teacher. What she did didn't work, and she got fired.
Oh
In
dear.
fifth grade, the problem was contained to really reading and writing and spelling typical. We know people like me, zillions of them. And in fifth grade, my teacher said that he didn't understand why I had such a hard time reading and spelling when I did speak so well. And this continued into middle school, where they pulled me out of Spanish because I was failing in eighth grade, ninth grade, and 10th grade. In 10th and 11th grade, I had to go to summer school, which I hated because I'm a real summer creature, sailing, surfing, kayaking, for both English language arts and Spanish. I went to four different colleges over 6 years to find one where I didn't have to do a lot of reading, including spent a year abroad where I could just live in Japan and have the experience and get credit for it. And eventually, I had enough um, credits in biology to have a bachelor's degree in biology. Went to work in research labs in New York City. I got married and moved to Ithaca, New York. I lived 4 miles from Cornell University and got a job there. And it was ideal because if I had to read anything, it was a scientific paper. They'd give me all day to do it. And I stayed at Cornell for 12 years, experienced a lot of things about scientific inquiry, always question what you know and what you don't know. And that's the essence of, I think, my interest in the reading wars. And during the slowdown in research in 1992, I went to teach science at a school for emotionally disturbed teens, and most of them um, obviously couldn't read. That's not unusual, except for one who came from a very disturbed background, who was very good in English, but he had shot his English teacher. That's always a story
Oh
that
my.
gets a little attention. The teacher lived, and this particular student went on to be an English teacher himself. But I got very interested in learning how to read, and and there wasn't a lot on the real high level scientific, nature and science and real solid science publications in those days. But I really started studying. I got interested in phonemic awareness because that was really a hot topic in the 90s. And I eventually started working as a special ed teacher in a school that had both a reading recovery teacher and an Orton Gillingham teacher. And I got the students that didn't work, and I worked with a speech pathologist to create lessons that included phonemic awareness activities because it showed me that I could cut down heavily on the amount of phonics I was teaching. And during that time, my own reading issues, my own also listening issues, I could never listen to like NPR, or we didn't have, you know, uh, podcasts in those days, but my ability to listen for a longer time increased, and my reading fluency and my spelling improved. And for the last about 25 years, I've been fortunate enough to work with a group of both speech pathologists and researchers in creating different reading programs. And my current one, which is called Sparking the Reading Shift, it contains a lot of the elements that we're going to talk about going forward.
Okay, I'm
Trying to
going to stop you
remediate.
there for just a moment and say
Yes.
that we will have a link to that in the blog. So, and I know the main part of what you want to do today is talk about your model,
Yes.
but this is your chance to pitch your book for a minute.
Yeah. Actually, it works on the principle that we'll talk about next, and that is that proficient readers have three abilities, mostly innate, mostly they learn implicitly. They learn the sound structure of words, the spelling structure of words, and the meaning, the morphology of words, and they're able to combine those implicitly. And that's why some kids, like my daughter and co-author, learn to read at 4 and 5 years old, and why other kids who can't put those three together, and phonics is not enough to do this, struggle through middle school and high school, or even into adulthood. So it works on what's called POM, phoneme proficiency, orthographic mapping, and morphological awareness. And it's kind of exciting field to be in at the moment. So
Okay,
that's enough. Go ahead.
okay. Well, it's sounding like I'm sure that people will want to take a look at the book. But now I need to do something here. Let me see. I want to change my view to gallery again just for a moment. Okay, so I think this brings us to the point now where I know you've got some slides prepared to talk about your model and the key features of your model. And I think that's where we're headed next, unless you've got anything more before we do that.
Now let's get into that. So I've already discussed who I am, and the slides aren't changing.
Oh, and I'll make a note that Gmail address will be there in the blog. I'll make sure that that gets into the blog.
Okay. What I tried to do in the blog is there's a lot of exciting research out there, and there's new models, as I mentioned, and that aren't really getting through. And what we need is really a way of testing all this new model and more contemporary research in a way that really works for classroom teachers. And what I like to do is combine a new model, which I'll discuss, with a lot of new methods, test them with elements from everything from reading recovery to Orton Gillingham, because there's a lot of good pieces in there. Instead of us talking about doing those pieces in isolation, combine them with other pieces to really make a dynamic program that even a first year teacher could be highly successful with people like me when I was in second grade. But I think the first thing we have to do is really look at why we're still debating the reading wars, spending so much time of our lives, and not looking at really what the root causes are.
Okay,
And so what
can
I
you go
did is
back
I
to that
looked.
other slide for just a moment, because one thing caught my eye that I want to call to the attention of everyone. And look at those respected scholars you're looking at, and you have both Duke and Seidenberg, and folks that sometimes might be viewed as on different sides, but you're looking at them all, and that's music to my ears. Just wanted to make that comment. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yes. So what we have to go back is that phonics and or science of reading now and balanced literacy basically involves very deeply held beliefs and values. Beliefs are what you think is true, and values is what you think is important. And it's hard to change values. I really think it's important that kids learn to read for meaning, and everybody agrees. But the fundamental difference is between explicit teaching, and we're just going to put every kid through some kind of systematic phonics program, versus implicit learning that a lot of kids learn implicitly, and they should. The other big piece is the divide between decoding and decoding accuracy and meaning. And in fact, what all these researchers are really saying is that we've been arguing about something that is really about things that aren't really distinct. That in fact, explicit instruction, if done in moderation, as Seidenberg says, as a brief on ramp, can lead to implicit learning if it's done correctly. So, and spelling is implicitly learned massively. You just need a little of it. And there's really decoding and word meaning and text comprehension are they deeply reinforce each other. They aren't distinct as we've been debating all along. And if we look at reading this way, and just say we're going to do a little explicit instruction so it leads to this implicit inherent ability for kids to learn, we can go a long way. The other thing that this model really brings up, and there's a real consensus opinion, is about what I mentioned before, POM, which is phoneme proficiency, orthographic mapping, and morphological awareness. So you get the sound structure, spelling structure, and meaning of words taught all together at once. This speeds up instruction. Kids get the links between it, and it really has been shown to make uh, learning to read much easier. And this is again how proficient students learn to read it, and so we wouldn't have to take a remedial piece. But what we really need to find out is how much or how little each child or group of students needs. So we spend the minimum amount of time with kids, teaching them how to learn and maximizing the amount of time that they're reading to learn. And we're maximizing the amount of time for vocabulary, knowledge, uh, benefit, and just learning to love to read and learn. I mean, that's what we're really wanting to do. So let's get this learning to read piece out very quickly. And I think this is one of the ways that we can do it. So what I'm proposing is a massive experiment, not the way that researchers do it, because research isn't set up to do this, but build what I call modules, which are different sets of these POM activities, which include activities, as I said, that are balanced literacy and and phonics, and just find what's the best combination of 8 or 10 of these that you could teach to a group of students that will get them over this hump. And the hump for me is third grade, multisyllable reading words, absolutely effortless, automatic sight word reading of multisyllable words. And we're going to do this with really diverse groups of students, including today, as you know, Sam, schools are under incredible amount of pressure. There's a tremendous amount of kids not even attending school. Teachers are stressed. There's mental health issues. And let's really look at diverse groups of students. Kids who have been bullied, do they need different instruction? Kids with ADHD. What about kids who are neurodiverse, you know, a little on the spectrum side? Take these kids, let's test them in regular classrooms with external people providing this instruction so that the classroom teacher doesn't have to expend any more time doing the testing. The classroom teacher doesn't have to modify what she's doing, and just let them see how these activities work in their classroom with their students. And that has been shown over and over. And you've done it yourself, Sam. What teachers need is to see the things work with their students in their classrooms. And just let's create 10 or 15 modules that work for kids in kindergarten and first grade to get them over this hump, as well as kids in high school and adult learners. So the learning to read piece no longer is something we even need to debate, and we can improve this instruction ongoing. So we're not doing this program like Wilson hasn't really changed. It's not highly effective, but they've stuck to those methods. We would continually improve instruction to make it faster, easier, and more enjoyable for kids to learn how to read. So that's my, I think that's it. Yeah, that's the next slide. There's no we.
Okay, well, I mean, go ahead and take down stop your share then, so that
Okay.
we can have a little more discussion about these wonderful thoughts. Um, so basically, how far along are you in terms of creation of any of these modules? Anything out there right now? And what's your vision for how this could uh, come about? And one last thing, I know you've got a big name person interested who might, and I think I would like for you to put a plug in about that as well.
Yeah.
So kind of get into those things now.
Yes. So what I've created, I love to create reading programs, and I've been able to make 5 distinct ones in my life, starting with a phonemic awareness one with words, that still exists today. I'm not involved. But my recent one is called Sparking the Reading Shift, which is just 16 lessons with 10 activities based on this POM idea. And what I'd like to do is take that as a starting point and then get dozens of people who have been creating activities involved and make what I've created look primitive. And that's so the starting point might be sparking the reading shift, but I'd love to just destroy it by finding, because there's so many good ideas out there. And the person you've been referring to, I've been working with Jan Wasowicz, who is the head of Learning by Design, and who's a real thought leader um, in the whole area of reading. She knows more about reading research than anybody. She's not aligned with either side, and she's very much wants to do it. And she has great programs, and she has even better trainings to do it. So that's my goal, is to really take all this great effort that a lot of people have put into creating programs, and then take these elements. I'm going to bring up reading recovery again. I know there's things that we could combine with reading recovery that can make things better. How do we deepen the meaning piece? And so exclude nothing. Stop debating it. Start testing it in regular classrooms. So that's my vision. And Jan, I should say, is going to release the whole blog um, to her 15,000 people mailing list, which is called Spell Talk. If you want to see the blog now, there's a link on my homepage, uh, which is readingshift.com, and you're free to read it. But it's exciting. There's a lot of interest, and I don't want to start a movement, because I'd rather like spark a movement. That's why it's called Sparking the Reading Shift. Get other people going, because there are great people in the field, but we together, if we combine our effort, all the effort that goes into the reading wars, um, and put it into something new and different that we can all accept, I think we could really move this field forward.
Okay, and I think we're kindred spirits here.
Yes.
In terms of what I've been calling for a while, and I'm playing with my technology again. Give me a moment. There we go. Okay, now we're side by side. Um, fit, give each child what they need. Okay,
Exactly.
and that is such a simple thing to say, and such a difficult thing to do. And don't be afraid to use things from whatever. Uh, the question is not, does it fit this philosophy or that? The question is,
Right.
does this particular activity work with the kid or not? And if it
Right.
works with the particular kid, then that kid deserves to have that. So this is just a fascinating idea. We're getting in on the ground floor here, it sounds like. I will make sure that those links are in the blog so that people can get to those things. And this
Thank
has
you.
just been a fascinating conversation. Okay, before we end this conversation, any other things? Boy, Sam, you forgot to let me talk about this. Anything else like that? Is there anything left?
The only thing is that, if we really combine things to make integrated, multi-component instruction, and not so that we cover these areas. Um, we've been testing, phonics programs, balanced literacy programs in isolation. Francis Pinnell, well, does it work by itself or not? The point is, what if we combine it with things and make it much more effective? And that, I think, is the way we really need to go. Instead of looking at in isolation, look at how things combine. And that's what happens in real classrooms. Things get combined with all kinds of elements. And I think that would, again, move us past this, what's been an endless debate. I'd like to see end before I give up teaching someday, even though I'm retired, right? Just like you, we can't stop, can we?
No, we're again, birds of a feather. We'll be teaching right down to the very, very end, no question. Okay, well, this has just been an enlightening and enthralling conversation. I'll make sure all the links are there for people to go to. I the idea that we use what each kid needs, such a simple idea, and RTI and other things like that might help to have that happen. And the fact that you've got a major player now interested in this idea, and the fact that you yourself, we were talking about you and having been through all this yourself, and much later in life, still becoming very successful at becoming a fluent reader. So you've made it work for yourself. You've made it work for your kids, and I can't wait for readers to have a look at some of your work and some of your ideas.
Well, thank
Okay.
you very much.
Okay. So that all said, there's one last thing to do. It's a Bomberito interview, and we always end with that silly thing, a nice big smile, yes, and a Zoom wave goodbye. So say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.